Well, this is actually the first of our final round of LOMLOE webinars for this year. The final round is looking at being primary ready. Going to do a little recap of what LOMLOE is. Some of the key points just to refresh our memory, to jog our minds. Then we're going to look at 3 different classroom activities. They're going to consist of warmers, an activity, and then a bit of evaluation. And we're going to be thinking about how these activities relate to a LOMLOE classroom. So we're going to try and link the ideas across. The activity ideas are going to be familiar, we hope. There might be some new ideas there as well. And what we do want is lots of participation from you guys. So if you'd be as kind as to share in the chat box and type away, and do ask questions as we go through. We like to interact with you guys as well. So it's not just us talking a lot, right, Alex?
Absolutely. And if we can't answer all of your questions during the session, although we will try to, we are more than happy to be in touch with you afterwards as well. So we'll share our email addresses, and we'll make sure that you've got all the links to the activities and things that we're going to be sharing with you today. So don't worry about that. Okay.
Fantastic. So shall we get started?
I think we should.
Excellent. So LOMLOE recap. We're going to go from the top down. So top level, what is LOMLOE? LOMLOE is a law that is changing a few things in our schools. Number one, and at the top of this changes, or these new law, is these 5 points. The law is changing a focus towards our children, making sure that they have all the rights to education. We want to be gender inclusive, and inclusivity is a big part in general. We're trying to be more inclusive. Moving on, we're also thinking about how we can improve our educational centers. That is as much the schools we work in, but us as teachers. How we can also make learning more personalized for our learners as well. 4 and 5, they are very much a part of our worlds already, I think, but again, now they are central. Number 4 is the digital competence. So we want the digital competence to be at the center of education. And finally, a sustainable development. This again is already integrated in somewhat. I imagine many of you are already working with sustainable topics and ideas. Well, now it's very much part of the education we want to encourage and integrate that into our courses. Next level down, we have key competencies or competencias claves. These are the 8 competencies that go across all of our subjects. Okay, so us as English teachers, as much as the maths teachers, as much as our PE teachers. These are the competencies that are common across the board. Now, these are basically our learners are going to have to demonstrate these skills and create a portfolio or a perfil de salida. They're going to have to find opportunities to demonstrate these different competencies throughout all of their subjects: English, maths, science, PE. But how do we do that? How do we integrate these 8 competencies? Well, we've been given our specific competencies. Now, these are unique to English and language learning. And the 6 specific competencies are comprensión lingüística, producción lingüística, interacción, mediación, plurilingüismo, and competencia cultural. So through these 6 competencies, we're going to be able to address one second, I can't jump back. We're going to be able to address our 8 key competencies. We evaluate our 8 competencies, our key competencies, but we teach them through the specific competencies. It's like an express course of what is LOMLOE to the English teacher, right? And from these specific competencies, You may recognize some of them. This is a framework from the Council of Europe. We have reception, or Comprensión Lingüística, and production, okay, or listening and reading, speaking and writing. We've just changed the names. Those 4 skills are still there. We've got interaction, which we might have also called collaboration. Yeah. And then we have mediation. Mediation was one of the newer terms, and all mediation is taking knowledge from one place and presenting it in another. As opposed to working on something together, we're taking something and using it somewhere else. We've got a few activities to demonstrate that today as well. Okay. And finally, we're talking about assessing competencies, because that's the big worry, I think, for a lot of us. Why should we assess competencies? Well, firstly, competencies, and when we evaluate competencies, it focuses on strengths and weaknesses in competencies, not knowledge. We can see how our learners are developing from more perspectives than just a language comprehension level. We can also be aware of their communication skills, their collaboration skills, their learning to learn skills, and these are other areas we're going to look at. Why is that important? Because it helps them get better. It's a way of showing progress outside of what is content knowledge. And finally, it's really, really useful for us, and I think this is probably the biggest reason why competencies are great, is because it allows us to see where there are problems in our classes, and we can adapt our classes more flexibly, you know, with more flexibility to better meet the needs of our groups.
Planning, right?
Yeah, right, for future planning, exactly. Would you like to add anything, Alex?
No, just that really. I just think taking the whole process into account, and not thinking of the learning process as being a one-off thing, because it isn't. It is a process. And so that last point there, I think, is really important. You know, the future lesson planning, and thinking of how we can move forward. How we can move forward with our learners, how we can also move forward as teachers as well, you know?
I thought it'd be quite nice if we could just take a quick moment now to ask you guys, how are you feeling about LOMLOE? Have you started to integrate any of the ideas into the classroom, or are you already teaching with competencies maybe in your classrooms?
Yeah, it'd be great to hear your ideas. It'd be really fantastic to hear what your experience has been so far, and please do share them with us.
Give you a bit of time to write. So just to let you guys know, Cambridge has been working with competencies for a long time now. I think we're probably in our 7th or 8th year of having competencies as a big part of our courses and our teaching, and we've noticed it's such a beneficial thing for them. We have our framework we're going to be looking a bit at later as well,
and just fantastic, like so many things that can really benefit learners as well. And well, we're going to move on to a couple of ideas in a moment, and you'll be seeing those ideas. But yeah, we'll be sharing a couple of them with you.
Excellent. Okay, we'll leave you writing. Hopefully someone will share. Be brave and let us know how you're feeling about LOMLOE. But what one message we wanted to get onto here is, why is great, but how? You know, wonderful knowing that LOMLOE exists and these competencies are now part of our thing, but how do we do it? Typically, when we assess language, we normally focus on what is the product, an exam, a test at the end of the unit, a term, or the year. But with competencies, that's a bit more difficult. We can't just set an exam at the end of the year. Competencies typically appear throughout the process of learning. It is the process, not the product of learning. So it's looking at both parts. It's looking at the day-to-day, the little business we do in the class, as opposed to the final bit. Oh, sorry, Alex, were you going to add something? Nope.
No. That's no.
Okay, good. So what we're going to do then, we're going to move on to the examples and the activities that we've got prepared for you to have a look at. Okay. Number one is thinking about how we might LOMLOEify a writing task. Couldn't think of a better way to put that, right? We're going to show, like we said before, a run of activity ideas, okay? And we're going to think about how we might change it to LOMLOE or to competencies, okay? So moving on, here's a typical activity we might do at the start of a lesson, the start of a writing task, a warmer, a prediction task. How many words or family or pets can you remember? We might encourage our learners to do this. Please do feel free to share in the chat box. Okay. Here are some typical answers that we might expect, right? Grandmother, grandfather, or granddad, mother, aunt, sister, etc. We might encourage family pets and cats and dogs. A nice prediction activity. One fun way that we could maybe make this a bit more engaging for our learners is group up our class into teams and encourage them to share ideas. And when each group comes up with a new word, they can come up to the board and write it on the board in a different color, and we can create a brainstorm, a mind map at the front of the class that then they can use when they're starting to write when they're starting to do their writing activities. Moving on then, we might ask them to draw their family and pets first and then write out an example, no? So first things first, draw so they can think and they get the idea, and then move on to writing it up with a bit of structure here. We're looking probably early primary. I don't know, what level do you think this would be from, Alex, more or less?
Ooh, what level could this be from? Let's get some ideas in the chat box. Let us know.
Maybe you do something with your learners as a similar level.
I'm just trying to think now, like what could you do with learners of this level? But again, ideas in the chat box, more than welcome.
Nice, yeah, second of primary, maybe.
Possibly.
I think it's definitely, I think it's first cycle, maybe pushing on to third. Yeah, I agree with you there, Belen. I think you're about right.
Second primary or third, yeah. So, you know, you've got these ideas going on, yeah.
For sure. Great. So then once they've drawn up, they write up and they share their ideas, right? We want them to not just keep hold of their writing. So what could we do afterwards? Well, maybe we might ask them to read a classmate's writing. And once they've read about their classmate's family and they've got the picture, maybe they take it and tell someone else in the class about that person. So if I wrote my family text, I would share it with Alex, and then Alex would take my family text and go over and share it with somebody else in the class. Maybe Anna Teresa, she would share with you my writing. And the idea being that then we're starting to use the things we're creating in the class.
Exactly.
Right, so a nice little run of activities. No, we've got a warmer where we're predicting language. Then we've got a quiet time where we're writing and preparing our own writing, and then we're sharing our writing. So we've got a bit of a collaborative moment in the classroom. But we've got a question for you now. Which competencies do you think were demonstrated in these three activities? So now in the chat box, if you could put forward some suggestions.
That would be fantastic. This is what's really important at the end of the day, because what we're talking about today is the competencies and the skills that we're actually developing while we're doing these activities in the classroom, right, Mark?
Exactly, yeah. Again, this is the whole along the process. This is the building up towards the trying to demonstrate the different competencies. So you have a look. Do we think it's linguistic, multilingual, mathematics, maybe, digital, personal, social, citizenship? Okay, so Maria Antonia has said 1 and 5, so linguistic and social. Lola agrees, but she's also added multilingual competence. I like that. That could be fun. Yeah, by nature, we're quite a multilingual subject anyway, right? Or as I think in the official,
Nice.
it's called plurilinguismo. Nice. So we got citizenship. I like that one as well. That's quite a nice idea. We could include that here as well. Brilliant. Nice. Okay, good. So lots of lovely ideas, lots of suggestions. We've actually put together a couple of examples. So we felt, like you, a linguistic communication and a personal, social, and learning to learn. Why? Well, we've used the Cambridge framework to identify different areas that we can look for. So firstly, the personal, social, and learning to learn. We're developing skills and strategies for learning. I think throughout this, we're planning, we're predicting, planning, and then sharing. So I think there's a nice process, a nice learning strategy. They're also using appropriate language for the register or appropriate language. It's about the family. They're predicting family words. So we're talking about the family. And they've also got the opportunity to participate and share with confidence and clarity. So there's a nice opportunity for them to then take the writing after predicting, practicing, sharing, to go and talk with other people and try to communicate. So we're building up the confidence for that final communication stage. And just to show you what it looks like in our framework, this is the Cambridge framework. You'll see, again, I've highlighted the points here. We've got developing skills and strategies for learning. Well, that one we could say is engaged in directed activities. No, what are they doing? They're following instructions, completing tasks. Acceptable enough, right? Using effective strategies for learning and retaining information, memorizing and repeating keywords and phrases. So we're predicting words at the beginning of the lesson, and then we're using the words in our writing, and then we're producing the words again in a communicative task. And the final one there, participating with confidence and clarity. One of the areas on the framework suggests telling a story or describing something clearly. So they're taking someone's story and they're presenting it somewhere else. They've got an opportunity to demonstrate this. You know, it's also a nice opportunity for us as teachers to observe how they interact with language, and we can start to become aware of areas that we might need to support them more. Anything to add here, Alex?
I think it's all really clear, to be honest. I think it's really nice to have, just as a reminder for everyone, that we've got this framework available, the can-do statements. So, you know, whatever activity any student carries out, we are able to provide you also with a framework for this as well, right, Mark?
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, in terms of, you know, the CFR, and we've got activity cards that we'll be able to share with you and things like that. But I think regardless of the level and things like that, you know, we've got the element of what I think lots of teachers may worry about is evaluation and assessment, and we really can help you with that, basically.
Yeah, we've got a really nice support. That's what this framework, exactly that, Alex, is this framework is here as a nice support, and it gives us a nice starting point to jump forward. You know, it gives us a nice point of reference to start thinking about how we might choose to evaluate.
Yeah.
Lovely. So another point we wanted to mention here is we haven't just been looking at the competencies, we've also been looking at mediation skills. So here is an example of a mediation success criteria. So this actually comes from the European, I've forgotten the name of the document now, the Council of Europe.
The CEFR, yeah?
Yeah, the CEFR, the Council of Europe document that talks about mediation, and here are some of the criteria that they put forward. Now, this is at a very high level. This is B1. We're probably talking in some places end of primary, but in most places secondary school, right? But what we're actually doing is we're starting, especially in early primary, to build our learners' skills and capabilities of being able to do these mediation use these mediation skills in an active scenario. That is, taking information from one place and sharing it in another, or taking someone's family writing and then sharing it with someone else. We're taking information and transferring it across. So again, we could even look at mediation. Again, mediation, that little activity offers so many opportunities for evaluation and review and feedback. Lovely. Moving on then to the second activity. On the screen, you can see a story. Okay, this looks like a lovely story about swimming. And we have a little question for you there. Then, what activities might you do with a story page like this?
Oh, let's see if we can get some ideas into the chat box.
So we can think about maybe a warmer and main activity, or maybe a follow-up activity after reading the story. But what type of activity might you choose to do? Or if you use stories in your classes, what activity might you typically go to? What is your...
Yeah, think about what you would do, or please share with us what you would do before, what you would do after, you know, or what you would do during. Any ideas are more than welcome.
Lovely, Belen. Acting out, of course. Exactly. Acting out is one of the best ones, right? It's one of our favorites. And I think, if we're honest, the kids love it as well, don't they? They love to get up and act out. And...
Absolutely. Yeah.
Does anyone else have any ideas on how they might use this activity? Lovely bit of webinar silence. Nice. So we remove the text and let the students create it. Yeah, so get them to create their own dialogue. That's a great one. The warmer, a nice idea. What hobbies do you do? What hobbies do you have after school? Erase dialogues, create the new ones. Nice, lovely. Yeah, so nice idea. So a lot about the language side of things, right? About creating the story, interacting with the language. I like that. Okay, let's have a look at a suggestion that we have. Here's a nice one that we could do after the story. So this is called roll and retell. The idea is that once we've read a story or we've done the story activities, we give our learners a dice. We can use a digital dice or we can use an actual dice. Better an actual dice, right? They throw the dice and they have to answer questions depending on what number they roll. So if they roll a 1, they have to say who the main characters are. If they roll a 2,
even better if we're back face to face at the minute, right, Mark?
Mm-hmm.
So if we've got a situation where we've got, you know, like teachers and students back in a face-to-face classroom, give them an actual dice and get them to play a game like this. So who are the main characters? Where did the story take place? What was the story about? What happened at the beginning? What happened in the middle? And what happened at the end? And get them to talk about it and discuss it and really involve them in a discussion, you know, something which I think you can't you can't replace it, can you, really? If you're now back in a face-to-face situation, fantastic.
Absolutely, yeah. So this activity is a really nice one, isn't it? A nice way to engage with the story.
Yeah.
And then maybe they find it a bit harder, but what we could do is maybe encourage them to use some specific language while they're doing it. For example, this is a bit of an abstract example, really, but the idea is giving them some functional language to support it. To say something in a different way, we might say, I mean. So who are the characters? They're da. I mean, they are the main characters. Giving them chances to take the language further. Again, if we're talking a bit higher now, this is level 3, but you get the idea, providing some functional language there. Then maybe afterwards we could pair them up and get them to do this series of activities. Number 1, have them think about what makes a good friend. 2, get them to talk about what makes a bad friend. And then 3, think about the characters in the story and whether they are good friends or bad friends. For those of you who didn't look at the story or haven't read it, it's about a young boy called Lucas who goes swimming, and his friends go to cheer him on and support him at his swimming meet and compliment him on his watch. So there's a nice moral in that story, and there's a value there, which is take exercise, and the sub value, if we could say that, is also about being a good friend. Again, thinking about the social responsibilities and how we as people interact with each other and how our actions support each other. Okay, so we've got a couple of ideas there. Okay, here's another way we could recap. So finish off this. After we've completed a task, we ask them to individually plan out what they did and what they say. They practice with a partner. They share with the group. Okay, so we're sort of building up with individual, pairs, group. And then once the group, we can sort of do a reflection task. Okay, so we're trying to take everything we're doing and bring it around to a final moment where as a group, we look at what we did and what we achieved. If that makes sense. So we sit down, we think individually, what have I done? Then we move on and we work with a partner, compare our notes. Oh, you did this. Oh, I put this. Oh, it's true. We did that. And then we go to the group and we summarize everything and we create, this is what we did, you know, and then we could say, how well did I perform in that class? Did I do well? Maybe we could ask them to fill out a my progress chart. Something like this, you know, where they have little smiley faces, they color in, I followed instructions, I gave my opinion. I'm thinking about the tasks that they did in that class.
I think this is marvelous. I think this is a great opportunity for students to, you know, reflect on their own learning, to think about how they've done, how they felt about it, how they felt about the activities and things like that. Yeah, I think, and then they've, you know, they've got various categories that they can read about there, and fill in as they see fit. But I think it's marvelous. Lovely.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a nice little tool. We'll let you in on a secret. These are all in a pack of cards we have available. I'll share with that later. I'll share that with you guys a bit later on. Okay. Okay, nice. So of those 3 activities, then we've looked at role and retell. We've looked at in pairs, talk about what makes a good friend, a bad friend, and then think about the story. And then finally, we've created a recap. Okay. In the chat box, if you could share with us what competencies do you think were practiced or demonstrated? Do we think they're the same ones? Maybe there are different ones here now? Give you a few more
Yeah, so thinking about the activities that we've looked at, what competencies do you think were demonstrated?
I think, I guess people are really having a think about it. Oh, nice. Yeah, C1, C5, C6. C1, C5, C6. Nice. Citizenship has popped up there. Yeah. Excellent. C1. Ah, nice. C8, a cultural awareness and expression.
Nice.
Lola's in agreement. Wonderful. Yeah, I like this. 1, 5, 6, 8. I think we're all on a similar page. What did we say? We said 1, 5, 6. I couldn't agree more that I think 8 is also involved there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and just like we said before, we've used the Cambridge framework here just to give us some points to review, talking about strategies for overcoming language gaps and communication breakdown. There's a nice opportunity for that. That's what we were talking about when we say give them language like I mean. There's a nice tool for them to go on and use. We're also talking about evaluating learning and progress. We're sort of thinking about the class recap. We're giving them an opportunity to think about how to improve individually as well as a group. And finally, also establishing and maintaining positive relationships. How in the citizenship competence? Well, looking what is a good friend, what is a bad friend, and thinking about how the people in the story are good friends or not. So these are the 3 things we've identified. Again, as we look at the framework, here are the examples, okay? Establish and maintaining positive relationships, identifies ways of making friends being good friends, etc. Following that, we have reflects on what they did well in a lesson. And finally, using strategies to overcome language gaps, using language such as I mean. So we're giving them opportunities, we're providing them a structure, and we're providing them with the resources for them to be able to demonstrate the different competencies. You know, and it's not stepping really far out of what is a typical classroom activity, right? Nice. I also wanted to mention here that these the competencies in the can-do statements, sorry, in the Cambridge Framework for Life Competencies are not prescriptive. They are flexible. You can add your own competencies within the category. So if you are doing using this framework, you can say, well, in this category, I think that this would be a good example of supporting others. Okay, and that can form a part of that category. It's really there as a base Absolutely. That we can use moving forward. Yeah, so again, this all comes in a pack. We'll share the link with you towards the end of the session, okay? Nice. We were also going to mention it could be a nice opportunity for individual self-assessment as well. We could do that with simple activities like this. This one is more focused on the learners paying attention to their own activities, you know, their own performance, you know, to say what was difficult to say in English. Was there anything? Yes, no. If there was, it was difficult to say. And then they can write down and start to reflect on what was challenging for them. Again, some comments like...
And so this is helping them to develop other skills, right, Mark? This is helping them to develop skills like, you know, learner autonomy, learning to learn, and just generally become, can we say, like, better learners? We should probably say more autonomous learners, right? But just basically developing those other sub skills that help them learn to learn, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I think so. I think these are a really nice set of the nicest sort of opportunity for learners to really start exactly that, becoming more autonomous, taking more responsibility for their learning, and trying to become more aware of their own performance. Yeah, exactly.
But I think it helps learners as well reflect on what they've done, not just what they are doing at the moment, but you know, what they have done, what they have achieved, what they're doing at the moment, and then also what they're going to be doing. So it's all part of the learning journey, right?
Exactly. It's all about that journey towards becoming a successful learner, right?
Yeah.
Also, the last question, I think this is something that we often forget. The last question is, can you say what you are getting better at? I think it's really easy for us to focus on what we didn't do well, but also it's really valuable that we start to look at what we did do well. You know, why, if we don't know what works, how are we going to replicate that? Basically, we want to know, oh, I actually was really good at the writing because I only made 2 grammar mistakes. And that's brilliant. You know, like little things to build confidence can help our learners in the long run. Lovely.
Definitely.
Oh, jumped back. So we're going to use another story now. So instead of what activities you do with a story, we're going to ask you, how might you, or how do you introduce a story? So before we've even started, what is it that you might do to introduce a story, such as the one we have on screen?
So we're just going to give you a minute or two. It'd be great if you could share a couple of ideas with us in the chat box of how you would introduce a story with your classes, how you would start presenting a story with your class, with a group of students, whether you've got 8 students or 30 students or 50 students, you know, how would you introduce any kind of story like this? It would be great to hear some ideas from you.
Nice.
What would you do, Mark?
What would I do? So what would I do? So I really like stories. I like especially to jumble up stories or take characters from the story and base it around that. So what you'll see in the next slides is, well, we'll jump ahead. Well, actually, here we go. Ask about the pictures. What can you see in the pictures? Nice. Okay, yeah. So predicting, right? Predicting what might be, what might come up, what might be happening. Exactly. Okay, so here's an example. So number 1.
Oh.
Person on top of questions about their life. Nice, I like that. Describe the people in the picture. Lovely, yeah. So here, what we're going to do, flashcard. Everyone loves a flashcard, right? I don't know if you've used flashcards or you like to use flashcards. On the screen, you can see a series of about 9 cards of all different jobs. Maybe I might choose to encourage the learners to say what the jobs are, what they do, what's part of their job, start to set the scene, start to sort of describe people. Oh, there are different jobs, there are nice things happening. Then when we go into the story, we can focus on some of the characters from the story, some of the jobs that appear in this story. For example, a cook, a driver, or a dancer. Okay, and then maybe we might ask them to think about what is their social responsibility. Where are they going to, who are they going to be friends with, or who are they going to be related to? We could start to create some fun things around it while we're listening to the story. Again, trying to get the learners to participate and predict and have fun with it. So in this, for example, maybe the dancer is friends with the cook, or maybe the dancer is the driver's sister. You know, little fun things. We've looked at family, we've looked at friends, we've looked at also jobs. So sort of trying to integrate and reuse knowledge where we can. Exactly that, Christine, gossiping a little bit. We could maybe even say the dancer is the chef's boyfriend or something, or girlfriend or something like this, you know, just to have a bit of fun with them. Lovely. So following that, what might we ask them to do? Well, this is a fun little activity, which I think we don't take advantage of enough as teachers. Okay, so number one, ask the learners, do you know someone who doesn't speak English? And they might say, my granddad, my grandma, my cousin, whoever it might be. And then we can ask them, can you describe the story in English and another language? So then we're thinking, oh, well, can I say it in whatever my first language is? Whether it's Spanish, Catalan, Valenciano, Bable, whatever is the first language.
It would be quite nice, actually, I think. Do you agree, Mark? It would be quite nice now to get some opinions on what you all think about, you know, sharing other languages basically in the classroom, in an English language classroom, whether you how you feel about, you know, how appropriate it is to spend time speaking just in English and or in another language as well, because we're looking at an example now of a story where students may or may not understand everything, and people may have different opinions on whether, you know, we should be speaking and reading in English all of the time. So it would be really interesting to get your opinions on that.
Yeah, do share in the chat box. Do you use any other languages? So what we could do then, once we've got the learners thinking about how to describe the story in another language, well, maybe then what we can do is group them up, encourage them to describe the story to someone who doesn't speak English. So maybe they describe it in Spanish. Okay. Why might we choose to do this? Well, for several reasons. Number one, it helps comprehension. It helps them understand what's happening in the story. Maybe there's some learners in the group who are not at the same level as everyone else and that they need a bit of extra support. Maybe it's just a bit easier for them to get the idea, and then they're going to understand the language in English a bit better. They can start to make those associations a bit easier. And we do it in a way where it's an activity focused on someone else. They're describing the story to someone else. I'll pause for a second because the nice comments come through. Some time ago, I thought only English, but now I think sometimes you need the mother tongue to engage them in the activity. 100% to engage them in the activity, but I think the engagement comes from the comprehension. Sometimes it's true that learners just need that little bit of motivation. And once they've got it, then it's our job to push them back to English and encourage them to do it in English.
Yeah.
Building the confidence, right? And that basically is what we're trying to encourage with mediation. So this again is from the Council of Europe. This is maybe some of you have seen our previous webinars. If you haven't attended, do check them out. We looked at primary mediation in primary, mediation in secondary. So this is the guide for mediation. These are the skills that we should be working on. Okay, if you want to have a quick look through, maybe some of you could pick out a couple. Which of these do you think we were working on in that last activity, where we were taking something and moving towards explaining it in another language? Can you see any examples in this? Give you a few seconds to share in the chat. So just take a look at a few of the different mediation criteria here. I'll tell you what I'll do. I will continue on. Let's see if anyone agrees with us. So we highlighted translating a written text, collaborating to construct a meaning, and adapting language. Now, why did we choose these? Well, we've gone and looked at the success criteria, and we've noticed that when it says translating a text in A1 level, we're looking for simple, rough oral translations into language B of everyday words and signs from language A. We've done it the other way around. We've gone from language B to language A. We're thinking, so we've moved up to A2 level. No, we're looking at taking language B to language A. And a task that they're perfectly able to do, and it's a useful process. For those of us here who our first language is not English, or that we speak a second language on a regular basis, you might find yourself translating in your head. I know I do it all the time in Spanish. I try to figure out the same translation, more or less, of what I would say in one language to the other to be able to express myself clearly. It's a natural skill. It's a natural language speaker skill.
It's something that you do, isn't it? You just, it's a process that you go through. Yeah, absolutely.
So this is why we said translating a text, you know, provide simple oral translation into language B. Moving on, collaborating to construct a meaning. Well, they can express an idea and ask others what others think. Use simple expression. They can prepare in advance, or maybe they can pose occasional questions, indicate they're following. They're encouraging them to work together and ask questions between each other. We're asking them to work together to create meaning from the text. You know, so we're encouraging them to take language and talk about it and use it in a very simple, kid-friendly way. And the final one, adapting language, we're looking a bit higher here. We're looking at A2, but it's essentially the same. It's repeating the main point of a simple message on an everyday subject, using different formulation to help someone understand it. What we're saying is, here's a story. Can you summarize it? Now, can you tell it to someone who doesn't speak English?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? So the idea is taking a language, converting it, and using it and presenting it to someone else. Mediation in action, which allows us to work on competencies, which then leads us on to how might we evaluate this. So this is a lovely poster that we've put together linked to LOMLOE. Isn't that right, Alex?
Oh, this is marvelous. I'm a big fan of this. Yeah, I think it's great, because I think this is a really fantastic poster, which basically helps, well, it promotes, doesn't it, Mark, like self and peer evaluation. Let's just take a moment, though, to think about why is this important. You can see the points here, though. You know, it helps learners to become aware of their progress, of what they're doing, of their learning, of how they're progressing, and, you know, develops understanding on what works for them and also what doesn't work for them, and also promotes group dynamics and inclusivity. So, you know, as always, whether you've got 8 students in a classroom or 30 students in the classroom, we're talking about a lot of different personalities and characteristics and learner preferences and things like that. So, you know, I think it's really important that each student feels like they have their own learning journey, and that we give them, as teachers, we give them an opportunity to reflect on where they've come from, where they are now, where they're going to. So this is kind of a map which you know, it's a template that hopefully can help them with that.
Yeah, this is actually a poster that we put together. We have some other posters we wanted to share with you and show you today. We'll get to them in a second. I don't know where they've gone, actually, they've jumped off. But we also have some a website. Please do jump across and check this out. If you go to Go to cambridge.es, you'll find links straight across to our website that talks us through LOMLOE, explains a lot of what we spoke today. And we also, just so you know, we have lots of resources available. We have evaluation packs with our courses. So these are coming out. These are going to be included with the LOMLOE Ready courses. So do ask your local representative about these. Here you go, here are the posters, right? So we've got a couple on litter, and we've got on the one you just saw, and we've also got some on food. If you notice at the bottom, it identifies the different competencies that they're working on. Just trying to make things easier so that we know what competencies we're working on. And also we've got activity cards. You may recognize some of these activities. Role and Retell is there in the middle, developing relaying skills. These activity cards are a pack for primary, for secondary, that you can download. Again, they come with our courses. They're free access to the LOMLOE ones. You can get the generic ones that don't have LOMLOE. They're downloadable, open and free from the Cambridge Better Insights website that we'll share the link with you in a minute. Okay, so loads of LOMLOE resources there. If you do want to know anything else about LOMLOE or find out about any of our resources, do contact your local representative. And we are pretty much done, 5 minutes early on our session today. But what we do want you to do is please do sign up for the following webinars, not just LOMLOE webinars. We have lots of webinars on Cambridge exams and webinars coming up over the next couple of weeks. Do check out this link. The QR code is there. Scan it. You can find it on our cambridge.es website as well.